task is to welcome a new committee member today, Mr. John Dow. John, thank you for accepting your appointment. Look forward to working with you over the next few years.
Thank you.
John and I had a chance to get acquainted. To the best of my knowledge, he's been oriented by Matthew, and he and I had lunch and talked about the real truth. So
You going to share that with us?
another chance. So I think we're well organized, so look forward to working with you, John. And it's nice to see that pretty well everybody knows who you are, so I don't think I need to go into too many details on that.
I hope not.
Thank you for your willingness to serve. We have before us minutes from our October meeting. If we could have a motion and a second, we can see if there's any comments on that, which I'm told Mrs. Fraser may have one or two. So how about a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve.
Second. All right, any,
Matthew, are the corrections in here? I didn't bring them along. Are the corrections in there?
No, ma'am.
They're not included.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
so Jane, did you?
I would like for the corrections to be included, and that's why I sent them to everybody. No, those are not the right ones. Yesterday I sent you the corrected ones.
Those are not the correct
Sent you the
corrections.
no, the correct ones I sent you yesterday. I thought I had them with me. Sent them to everybody except John Dow. Oh wait, here it is. Here are the corrections. So on paragraph 3,
Paragraph 3.
he does say that the Corsair Beach parking lot was completed, as well as 1.6246 miles of residential street paving.
So it should be 1.624 miles?
Yep. And then in paragraph 4, I gave you the exact quotes there that.
Okay, I'm gonna let you go ahead and
Yeah.
offer your suggestions, then we'll move on. and
Okay,
second them.
okay.
Yeah.
All righty. Paragraph 4, Austin references challenges and that they did stop work with that guy. He finishes with "we're getting somewhere." He clearly did not say that the sidewalk on Harrington was complete. So I've recommended that we rewrite it as follows. Glenn County Public Works Director Dave Austin updated the SCOC on completed paving on Norwich Street in Demery, with the exception of the turn lane at the reserve at Demery, that was planned to be completed concurrent with the repaving work to achieve efficiencies and cost savings. Mr. Austin stated that the reason for the delay on the turn lane was due to funding issues related to the reserve's developer bond, and that Pam Thompson is working on that. Quotes. Mr. Austin also reported that the sidewalk on 341 has been completed and that the sidewalk on South Harrington was still under construction. So that's the change. Regarding the South Harrington sidewalk, he explained there are, quotes, challenges with the initial contractor and that they had to stop work, but his summary on South Harrington was that, quotes, "we are getting somewhere," close quotes. On paragraph 4, Mr. Austin reported that the construction of the new animal shelter would require a new lift station to be constructed prior to the shelter being operational, and that he was currently in negotiations with Director Jimmy Junkton of Joint Water Sewer relative to funding for the required lift station. You've got that change, Matthew.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Then at paragraph
You got all
7,
that in writing anyway.
Matthew Kent included the statement, Mr. Franklin spoke about open seat with Mary Harris. I would simply ask that Matthew delete that reference, as Mr. Franklin did not mention Mary Harris or the open seat. Thank you, colleagues. That's it.
These corrections are all documented in the video.
They're all documented in the video, and we'll give you the time to go to if you want to go to 7 minutes or
Okay.
And I have. the
And I
email,
assumed
so
all of you did,
whatever you decide.
especially you, Phil, right?
Dan, I'm glad you did.
Yeah, thought so.
Well, if we accept those corrections,
You're gonna make a motion?
I'd like to make a move that we accept the corrections for the minutes.
So this will be amended motion?
Amended motion, yeah, it should be.
second,
Do I hear a second?
I second.
Please waive it.
I second.
Any further discussion? The chairman remarks, not without humor, that I remember very clearly talking about Larry Harrison in DC, so. But you said you looked at the tape, right?
Look at the film, yeah, look at the film.
Making it up now.
That's all right, carry on. Carry on, that's why we got those films, that's for us folks that can't remember.
All right, all in favor of Mrs. Fraser's motion? Thank you. Opposed?
Abstain, or,
You were here anyway.
right, so,
But you could have watched the film.
right.
You're a lucky person.
All right,
Who was opposed?
count that as an abstain.
No, no opposed.
Although it was a tie, Matthew, so everyone else voted for it except Mr. Downing, so. All right, that takes care of the minutes. And so we next go to Glynn County. Who's representing Glynn County?
Okay, quick procedural thing. You voted on the amendment. No, you need to vote on the approval, a motion to approve the minutes with those amendments.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I make a motion that we approve, the,
Yes,
Vote
okay.
vote on the amended minutes.
oh, the motion.
Good. Good. All right, so a motion to approve as amended, and a second. Bill, you gonna second that?
Sure.
Yeah?
Right, so you just have to vote on the original motion. Just, the motion's already been made
Yeah,
as on the minutes. You just have to vote on it as amended.
yeah.
So just all in favor at this point.
Okay. All in favor? One.
Thank you.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Excuse us, we're doing a little housework.
Well, that's okay. That's all right. So my name is Ben Pierce. I'm Roads and Drainage Division Manager for Public Works, and I'm filling in today for Dave Alston, giving you some updates about the county projects. And we've got a brief slideshow to kind of give you a little bit of a taste about some of the projects, not all of them, but more of the exhaustive list that you have here in front of you.
You gotta help with that, there you go.
Ben, do you want us to wait till the end to ask questions, or can we?
No, you can ask questions, but only you,
I
Jane.
studied it, yeah.
Okay, so here's a few projects that we have that have been completed as of today. Let's see if I can go to the next one here. Whoop, oops, go back. All right. So you may have seen the Norwich Street resurfacing. That's been completed. And the US 341 sidewalk. You've got from left to right, you've got a before, during, and after. So we got a lot of good comments about this project. And, of course, as you know, Deming Road resurfacing has been completed. There's some in-progress photos, as you see there. Pretty successful project for us. Here's some projects that we have currently under construction. We do have a video here that our project manager has shot for us. Matthew, it's the next one? Okay. So just bear with us here. A few photographs of the work being done on South Harrington, the sidewalk there.
sidewalks all on the south side of the street, I think.
Yeah, there's one crossing there, as you see, where the domes are at, right there. That usually indicates a crossing. I think there's a crossing up by the schoolhouse at the,
Oh, there.
Put our initials in that line.
I know.
Yeah, we were, yeah,
I know John Gilmore has one.
Don't tell them.
Dave told us there's no way he's gonna build a sidewalk next to the Benny's Red Barn, but there's a sidewalk going in there. Is that you?
I'm gonna let Dave answer that question. He's he knows more about those than I do. But yeah, this project, the South Arrington sidewalk project, I can just tell you that you know, we were faced with a contractor that was, it started out on his own schedule, and our staff really did a very good job. David Deloach, Adam Cothran is still doing some project management and oversight of the ramps at driveways. This was a contractor we really had to stay on top of, and in fact there were times where we had to make them stop work because of just their inefficiency. And so but yes, our staff works really hard on these projects and tries to make sure that we get the best product that we can.
Have you completed that sidewalk yet?
No, ma'am, not yet. These were still in progress photos here. Another in progress project that we have, one that I'm managing, is the Old Jessup Road at Pepper Creek. This is a box culvert extension project, and they were resurfacing and repaving the road today. And this is yeah, here we go. This is just a drone footage that you can see on our website. Kind of see some of the ongoing pictures there where the culvert was. It was extended to the north and to the south. Contractor is Alan Owens on this project.
Alan who?
Alan Owens?
Alan Owens.
Yes, ma'am. They're out of, I think, Blackshear.
Was that intended to improve drainage, but also allow you to widen the road a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. So what we're doing on that project is most of the road of Old Jessup Road in that portion is a 20-foot road, 10 lanes either direction, fairly narrow, hardly any shoulder. And so on that project we had it was a clear zone. It was really a clear zone issue, a safety issue, because if you drove down the road before, you had such a large drop off, and you really didn't have no guardrail, not a lot of warning there. And so we did some analysis hydraulically and found out that the double box culvert actually served a pretty good purpose, and that all we needed to do was just extend out the culvert, put in the wing walls as you saw. And with the paving, what we're going to do is we're actually bringing that section up to current standards. So we're still going to have the 10-foot lane, but we're going to have a 4-foot paved shoulder on the outside with the guardrail on the outside face, and that really helps with basic clear zone improvements. So it's a lot safer of a roadway there at that section. But Old Jessup, I mean, it's a pretty narrow road to begin with.
Ben,
Yes, ma'am.
you spent $669,000 with an $850,000 budget. Are you going to have overruns? Is that going to be difficult to finish with only the culverts done and the rest of the stuff to still be done?
So that project that I just mentioned was actually the Old Jessup at Lily Way box culvert, that $350,000 original budget.
Okay, I'm looking at Old Jessup reconstruction.
Yes, ma'am. That's this one here. Some of the in progress photos that we have here. I can find out for you. I'm not managing. That's David Deloach. He's managing the project as an intent project manager, and we can. But I can tell you that project it has become it's become a project that's a bit more challenging than what we originally thought. And I'll show you a video here of kind of what we're talking about. So you see a couple of pictures there. This is David Deloach in the red. Great project manager, great on-site construction. He's probably giving somebody a hard time right there on his phone.
You cut out his words, I see.
So this is a brief video kind of showing what we were facing. Probably the worst condition road in Glenn County. the speed limit through here was reduced substantially. Now, this is a very rural section of Old Jessup Road. You didn't get a lot of traffic, and you can tell why. But some of the challenges that we faced were additional box culverts that were needed. Some of the paving sections had to be increased because of the conditions that we had. We actually have what's called cypress knees, which is basically cypress roots that come up through the pavement, and all that has to be redug back out before we can put in the new base and the new asphalt. So this process, just to kind of give a summary, so this process is a asphalt reclamation, called a full depth reclamation process. It's not just taking out asphalt and putting in new asphalt. It's actually recycling the old asphalt in with cement, so that makes it a harder or stabilized base, and then you come back in with an asphalt surface over that. So with that process, if you encounter organics like tree roots and things like that, you have to basically dig a little bit deeper and remove up those organics and replace with fill material. This is Sea Island Road. This is currently an ongoing project. They should be, they were doing, I think, the pipe culvert installation. I don't know if I have a.
Yeah, they're out there.
They're out there now.
Yeah.
They're putting in some culverts in now, digging out for the shoulder material and putting in the base. The basics of this project is to provide a turn lane off of Hamilton Road, or coming north onto Sea Island Road as you turn from Hamilton Road. And that's really the basics of this portion of the project. This is at Sea Island at Hamilton, and then you have Sea Island at Hamilton Landing. The challenge that we're facing here, it's not a difficult project, but it's a very safety improvement project where if you're traveling, particularly if you're traveling southbound on the road before it was reconstructed or being reconstructed, one of the challenges that you have is you're going south, you're getting into this intersection, the weaving movement is really sharp. You're traveling south and you're having to pull over to the right real quickly and then pull back to the left as you cross past Hamilton Landing. And so this project really looks at increasing the turn lanes there, the weaving lanes, makes it much more of a smoother transition and resurfaces the entire road in the project area.
Ben,
Yes,
let
sir.
me ask you a question. The road that goes into the marina off of Sea Island Road, is that Hamilton?
Yes.
That's Hamilton. So this project is going to eliminate that drainage issue that.
No. This is not a primarily drainage project. This is a turn lane improvement project. This
Okay.
is there's a drainage culvert that's underneath Hamilton Road right now. Okay, that was
Hamilton Way is the road that goes towards the marina off of Sea Island Road.
correct.
Okay, Hamilton Way. All right.
Correct. You've got Mariners Landing on the right. You've got the hospital facility on the left.
Yeah,
You go back to the park in the back.
exactly. So the drainage issue associated with all of that, it's not part of the road
No.
improvement?
No, sir.
Is there a drainage project
Not associated with this project. No, sir.
with SPLOST 16? There's not?
No, sir.
Okay.
There's not.
Thank you.
And following on that, my question would be, have you called the bond on Mariner's Landing to help improve that drainage?
That's Jane. I don't know. I mean, honestly, that's not part of our projects here with this.
Right.
I didn't mean to.
No, I understand.
Bring it, you know.
No, I understand.
John opened up the can of worms there. I blame it on him.
Well, I'll take the blame.
I mean,
Just
there
asking a
were
question.
roadway improvements as associated with that project that you mentioned. The SPLOST project is just an extension of that. All right. Okay, so the village project, St. Simons Island Village improvements. What you have in red is a Phase 1 scope. What you have in yellow is really what we've identified as Phase 2 improvements. Phase 1 is going to primarily be on Butler, Mallory, Beachview area, some on Oglethorpe, and some at the Grove detention ponds. as you see down at the end of Lord and the end of Ocean Boulevard. So that project, and we'll get to some time frame here in just a moment, but that project's going to commence at the first full week in January. And the extension phase 2 right here is really the consultant that we had, Georgia Water Environmental Services, identified other key areas that are needed for improvements to the overall drainage system. So what we're doing in this phase primarily is just improvements to the existing system. Phase 2 is going to be improvements to the point where we're actually adding additional outfalls into the sound, into the ocean. That's the extent of going down Georgia Street with another outfall. There's an existing one now down Virginia Street. The Phase 2 project is looking to improve the overall system capacity and increasing it down to Georgia. And they're currently designing that project for us now and permitting that project.
Jay, you only got some phone calls on this one. We're sending it to you.
Good.
So this one, this project, I believe we're going to be very successful with this project, and the reason is because we've had so much communication with the village merchants throughout the whole process. We had a pre-construction conference internally on November 27th, and then we had our second meeting with the village merchants last week, and that went very well. They were very pleased with the communication. We're going to have continuously, you see the start date there, January 27th. We're going to have weekly update meetings with
2019, right?
Yes, yes, that's right, 2019, that's right. So I think one of the key factors in the success here is really just communication with the merchants and trying to be as efficient as we can with the disturbance area. So we've restricted the contractor to 60 days, so it's going to be pretty in and out job. Hopefully we should go pretty smoothly. So again, communication is important, weekly meetings is important, and then a short time frame really makes the contractor.
What's it gonna look like when it starts down there in the village?
Well,
I mean, what, in terms of detours and blockages
Yep.
and loss of parking?
Yep. Well, there'll definitely be a lot of all that, honestly, at different times. Not.
So there are the sections at a time, how do they do that?
Yes, sir. So we're going to start with the beach view. If you kind of look on the screen right here, where the red is located, highlighted in yellow there. Also, the red there on beach view, that's going to be phase 1. That's likely going to take us a couple of weeks, or take the contractor a couple of weeks. That's going to start from Brogan's and go down to the pond that's behind the alleyway there. There's going to be some improvements there. And then they're going to start taking up the sidewalk and the curbing there along Mallory. That'll be a phase 2 project. We're looking at probably about 3 weeks with that. And then we'll make the crossing. We'll make the crossing over to Beachview at that final phase.
Sorry,
Yes.
Benji, Brogan's is below phase, correct?
Yeah, where it's
Right there where that,
Correct. Uh-huh.
That's Brogan's, right?
Yep, so you're
What's this
basically
spot?
on the pier. Stand up and right
Oh,
underneath
okay.
phase. You're with me?
Yeah.
Yeah, this
Now-
is Brogan's right here.
Oh, that's
We're going to start right in here.
there. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right, so our first phase is here on Beachview. Our second phase is going up Mallory. Okay. Our third phase is coming on this side of Mallory and on Beachview. The improvements down here to the pond are going to be as they can fit in. This is not a critical path item, but it's an item that needs to be addressed. The most critical path items are going to be the work on Beachview, the work on Mallory, and then the work down on, Butler, Mallory, then Beachview.
Where is Lord Avenue?
Sure. Lord Avenue is right here.
Okay.
All right. Moving on to the other in-progress projects. Right now we're looking at a dirt road paving, East Beach Causeway resurfacing. We awarded that project to Allen Owens Construction. You see the amount there, and the SPLOST funding is going to cover that, as well as some contingency funds.
Ben, what percentage of that, what part of that is LMIG funds out of that 448?
I don't know. We haven't discussed what the portion of that is, at least I haven't been told what the portion of that was. I mean, our intent was to have if you go back on our sheet, our intent, the road resurfacing projects on the first line there, a lot of that was going to include the LMIG funds that we have.
Yeah.
I think with this project, I don't believe that any of the LMIG funds were allocated for this project because the LMIG 18, the current LMIGs we're in don't cover these projects. They cover other projects. And so the list that we're putting together now are for other resurfacing projects that we have throughout the county. But the intent is to correspond with the road resurfacing that we have on that first line. That's why it says includes LMIG.
Yeah.
How do the residents feel about this? Have you had the same kind of meetings with them?
Ecstatic. I can tell you some, you know, we're paving their dirt road. It's never been paved before, obviously, and they're just ecstatic about the roads being paved. All right.
So as far as you know, all 448 is going to be SPLOST on that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
448 plus the contingency. in the county.
Correct. So the items
Right.
that were listed on the LMIG list, I'm sorry, on the SPLOST list.
Yeah.
Okay, so these other roads were bid with the project, and those are going to be contingency funded.
Okay.
And then these roads here, in addition to East Beach Causeway, are SPLOST funded.
Okay. So
Now on the East Beach Causeway, I thought that there was going to be economy of scale. You're going to put the traffic circles in, you were going to wait and phase them all together rather than do the double disrupting of
So the limits of our paving on East Beach Causeway, let me go to the next picture. This is just kind of a flavor of what we have out there right now. Okay. So the extent of the paving for this contract is going to be up to, gosh, there is a name of the subdivision here, Downey Retreat. It's going to be from there down to the west side of the bridge. The roundabouts will cover the other extents up to the bridge over here and then up to Downey Retreat and where the joint was here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There won't be over,
I thought that was
the
all
intent.
I thought the paving was all going to be done in one phase as the roundabouts were constructed. This is what I had understood from previous meetings, that it was all going to be one, one operation, and that's why there was such a hurry to get the traffic circles approved and done, because, this is from Commissioner Murphy would say, well, it doesn't make sense to rip it up more than once.
well, what's confusing here too is combining the dirt roads with this project. So it's hard to tell. So his original budget was 145,000, but then the dirt roads were put in with it. It's kind of confuses the 448,000.
Okay.
So which part is what? I guess that's the question, is what
Sure.
by combining the dirt roads here with the
Right. So the objective with this one is that to get a better overall price for
get
the
a better
construction.
price
Yes,
by
ma'am.
adding that in.
Correct. Correct.
Got it.
Then
Yes, sir.
the green up here, back there, that is the paving contract, contract.
Correct.
And then the balance of East Beach on both ends are going to be incorporated with the roundabout.
Correct. The remainder portions of
Here.
East Beach
Yeah.
at both ends are going to be covered with the roundabout construction.
And what's the timing of the paving and the roundabouts? Are they going to be done
Yes.
concurrently, or?
No, sir. So the contractor doing East Beach Causeway, we are looking at, it could be January, February timeframe. So these will be, this and the dirt road paving will be executed pretty quickly.
And then after that, the roundabouts will be constructed at both ends?
Yes, sir. There'll certainly be a lag with that.
But
With
done
the
before
roundabout.
the season, or, I don't know.
Well, we can discuss that if you like. So.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. The roundabouts, it's on your sheet, it's on the back of your sheet. We're looking at fall of 19 being awarded to, under construction.
Fall of 19.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we're going to get through the season, the summer season without the roundabouts and then do them afterward.
Correct.
But the East Beach Causeway will be improved.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yep. All right.
In the paving of that, are there, I guess you've gotten the permits and all, are there any DNR concerns?
Not with resurfacing. Not with resurfacing.
Because it's already there.
Well, I don't know if it was, it's just going to be resurfacing. not
Yeah.
drainage or anything,
Right.
drainage.
Right. Just resurfacing. Another project here is Ocean Boulevard, Chapel Crossing Road. Sidewalk improvements there, awarded to Swindell Construction. So here are some projects that are currently awaiting bid, under bid and award. The Fredericka Road resurfacing intersection improvements, that actually opens this Friday. The extent of the project will be from north, just north of Holly Street, right there at the Circle K, down to Kingsway. The intersection improvement projects that are associated with SPLOST, which are on the second page of your handout, you see those listed there. The Fredericka at Riverview, Fredericka at Sea Island, and on your sheet it's called Fredericka Go Around, but it's really at Wimberley Road.
Oh, that was
those-
one of my questions. What's the go-around? It's at Wimberley?
Yes, ma'am. It's a additional left-hand turn lane into Wimberley, and that will be included with the SPLOST Fredericka Road resurfacing project. Again, we're there doing the project. We're resurfacing Fredericka Road. It's a better overall product and construction time frame if you can include these other intersection improvement projects with it.
So all of these are being rebid now, is that right? But you have the budget for them, but they're being rebid, or they're being bid.
They're being bid, and the bids are due this Friday.
Due this Friday?
Yeah, the 14th. Yes, ma'am. All right. North Harrington Outfall Project. This is a rebid. We will be rebidding the project at the turn of the year. The reason that we're rebidding it is because the first time we bid it, we had no bids. Some contractors, I suppose, maybe didn't know about it. Maybe they didn't care to bid on the project. The scope really is not a difficult scope. It's basically pipe in the roadside ditch there. As you see, it's more of a safety improvement there along North Harrington, right there in front of Admiral's Retreat. So we will rebid that again in January.
Is there any utility relocation associated
We
with that?
don't anticipate anything. No, sir. No, sir.
Ben, what gives you any confidence that you're going to be more successful in January? I mean, has there
I
been
understand.
more interest since the
I
first
think
bid?
I think as word is getting out that the county, the city, JWC are having a lot of these SPLOST projects, I think there's more of an eye and a kind of ear to the ground on that. There's actually work out there to do, and the only thing we can do is rebid the project.
Yeah.
I mean that's the only recourse at this point because again the scope's not going to change. It's pretty much a simple scope.
There's no way to barter with some of the bigger projects with the contractors to,
I think it's such a unique project and a unique location. It's hard to kind of combine it with another project and still call it, it's
one contract.
one contract,
I got
right?
you. Okay.
Okay, so here's a brief list of some of the projects that are currently under design. And again, we see a lot of these details in your handout. The Altama Connector at Spur 25 intersection. We mentioned the East Beach Causeway roundabouts. The Canal Road widening project is currently planning and design. The Veterans Memorial and Courthouse parking is currently, we're very close to being completed with the 100% plans on that. The Kingsway and Fredericka Road intersection improvements. And then Sea Island Road at Demery intersection improvements.
On that connector, can you just give us a quick little update on how that's going? I know that's a big concern for a lot
Yes,
of
sir.
people.
So right now we're currently at, they're surveying the project. and getting utility locations, underground utility locations overhead, getting edge of pavement, ground shots. That's kind of where they're at, determining property corners, those sorts of things at this point. All right, so those are the projects that we currently have under design. That's the completion of at least the slideshow. I can go through and answer questions as much as I can about what you have on your sheet.
Why don't we just do it with questions? Everybody's had it well in advance, which we appreciate.
Yes.
So
We sure do.
we'll have a chance to look at it. So if anyone has any questions.
Yes, sir, Mr. Dow.
Under road infrastructure resurfacing, the $4 million canal spur to Glencoe.
Correct.
Under challenges, it says right-of-way acquisition, alignment, and wetland. I can understand the wetland permitting process. Is the challenge for the right-of-way acquisition, is it money, negotiating the right-of-way, or is it designing what needs to be conveyed or acquired?
Paul might be able can answer some of that, but I would say Paul Andrews is a county engineer. He's managing the project. I would say that we haven't come to a design plan set at this point. We're merely trying to decide the direction of where the widening is going to happen, north, south, symmetrical. We're getting up to a point where we're deciding what we're going to do at Harry Driggers and Canal Road and Glencoe Parkway, that intersection. So that's part of it, part of the decision-making process there. And so there will be right-of-way to acquire at that point.
So the question, I guess, Paul,
Yeah.
is not how much the cost is, but how much needs to be acquired, and that'll be determined after it's designed.
Yeah, I mean that's really the best time. I mean there's preliminary.
No, I agree. But I didn't know if it was whether it was going to be conveyed or we're going to have to purchase it, and is the challenge the price, or the challenge just determining what we need?
What we've got there in that section of it was us looking ahead at staff and saying these are elements that are going to possibly put a wrinkle in the project. On all those ones where we knew that right-of-way acquisition was going to occur, we included that as one of the challenges. Same with environmental permitting. Like Ben was saying, is we just gotten to the point where a decision where we've gotten direction moving forward with how we're going to deal with an intersection. Should have the money in the budget. Preparing plans to reach out to people to acquire. I've already spoken to a good bit of the people out there. I think acquisition is going to go it should go relatively smoothly, but it's still another step in the process. And with those negotiations, it's all negotiations. So it turns out on other ones that we have acquisition, people aren't willing to
I got you.
to work with us, so it becomes even more of an issue. But that's why on that, all those ones that we knew was going to be acquiring, but you've got some that it turns out we're going to acquire. As we run into it through the projects, we may add that to it as the project says we've got to acquire some right-of-way there. That may become a challenge.
The design hasn't identified exactly what needs to be acquired, so it's that before the challenge of negotiating. You got to figure out what we need. Got it.
I mean, we can approximate and say, well, we think we're going to be taking
Doesn't
20
make any
feet
sense
from
to
this
do that.
property,
Yeah,
but that's
no.
all it is at this point.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir.
On the completed Demery Road, Sea Island to Fredericka project, now I'm seeing across where 224% of the budget was utilized. So there's, a large deficit there. Is that all going to be made up when the bond money is received, is secured?
Where are you? Where are
It's
you
showing a
talking about?
$377,000
Oh, Demery Sea Island to
deficit
Fredericka. Right.
on that repaving job.
Right.
How much is going to come from the bond to cover that? And how are the other projects going to change with that deficit?
Right. To my knowledge, again, I'm not the manager of the project, but what I understand is that they're still trying to determine what that bond amount is going to be. How much of that is contributing to the deficit? We don't know. At least I'm not aware of it this time.
Well, I'm concerned, one, that
I understand.
bond, that this was mentioned in the last meeting, which I wasn't
Yeah.
here, and this seems to be no progress in obtaining that money from the building.
Well, again, I mean,
We're not being.
I'm telling you what I know about that. I mean, we can certainly, try to take a look, and if that you want us.
Can we have a report on that? Like just an update on that, and maybe by email or something like that?
Yeah, Pam Thompson was supposed to be working on that.
Well, I wonder if we take it back. I understand you don't know about it, because that's not your area. But I would like to know how we're coming on getting that done, because the project really isn't completed until those turn lanes are done. And
Well, I can tell you that the scope of the SPLOST project
okay.
has been completed. That didn't include
All right.
the drainage improvements or the turn lane. The way that the SPLOST project was scoped, it was merely resurfacing, as it's indicated.
Okay, so then the question is, why did it exceed the budget so much?
Not sure. We can get back with you on that.
Yeah,
Okay?
we know that, and we get a follow-up, that'd be
Sure.
awesome. I think it's important too, Matthew, if you make a note that you like keeping all these projects that are completed on the list as we continue to move forward, so we can address issues like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
very important.
All right.
Who's in charge of the animal control facilities? Is that the county?
Yep.
How are we doing?
What questions anything specific? How we doing?
There was discussion last time about negotiating for a lift station,
Right.
and then also putting it within
There's a redesign.
redesign.
Yeah. That's about it. Still negotiating that I know of with JWC about the lift station. No?
He's here.
I know.
He's here and he's smiling.
We're taking up aluminum cans right now.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question about the village improvements there.
Yes. I can talk about that.
Good. So I like the fact that, again, the communication, I feel like is the key with those merchants and stuff.
Right.
And you said you had a very successful meeting. Can you give me an estimate on, was it 5% of the merchants that showed up at the meeting, or were more like 75%?
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
So here's what we did. So the first meeting that we had, gosh, it was several months ago now, and the date slips my mind. It was just an informational meeting. Myself and my engineer went to every single door. We're having a meeting next Tuesday. You're welcome to come, that sort of thing. Same approach for this past meeting. Went to every single door, and I found either an employee or a manager, owner, said, this is what's going to happen. We're going to have a progress meeting, a construction meeting Monday. You're welcome to come. And we had, I believe it was 15, 20 people. We didn't have, Mr. Struthers wasn't there, but he was at the first meeting, very supportive of the project. Many of the village merchants were there, and so we got their input. We sent out the meeting minutes from that meeting to the email chain that we had. Everyone that came signed in, put their email address. Even folks that didn't show up, still sent them, the correspondence. And so I think that's what's going to help, I believe, in making it successful.
Will there be a way to get into those shops? There's a wooden
Yes.
walkway.
So that's yes. So that's part of the contractor's project and scope, is that he needs to maintain access to those to the merchant doors. I think the only exception is that when they're actually building forms and pouring concrete in front of their door. That's about the only, in maybe a 24-hour period to let the concrete at least somewhat dry enough to walk on it, and that's about it. Parking, yeah, we're going to have to block off some parking areas, but access right in front of their facility is a very small amount of time will be limited.
I think many of the merchants are used to stepping up with sandbags anyway. So, a little more inconvenience won't really.
That time of year,
they're
you
used to that.
could shoot a cannon and not
And this,
hit a
and
car.
I'll just say from the merchant's perspective, overall, this was a good time for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
After the new year and before spring break. I mean, yeah, that provided some inconvenience still, but it was after their peak season during the holidays and before spring break.
Well, thank you for that. I just encourage you and your staff to continue that
Yep.
communication.
Makes all the difference.
Any more questions?
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, I guess we do the city next. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'd like to introduce some of my staff this evening. I have with me Garo Alberson. He's been our city engineer for a number of years, and he's recently been also duly titled as the Public Works Director. And so I thought some of the questions that are coming up, and we're getting into greater details, that perhaps he would be able to give focus on some of our programs today. Also in the audience is Beatrice Soler. She's a management analyst in the city manager's office, and she prepared a slide program. We told you last time we would bring you some pictures to show you some of the things that we've done. I know a picture really certainly helps explain the story. So we do have the list, and I have like I've done each time. I've got copies for you if you have a difficulty reading the smaller print. Hopefully there's enough there.
Did you get to?
Yeah, give me one more.
We're going to go through, and we're going to try to address the issues through the slide program. Some of the items that we have not moved forward on because they haven't been budgeted actually partially in this year, or they're currently in design. But I think we're going to kind of tag team it a little bit. I'm going to talk about some, and Garo's going to talk about a few of the others. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. It's right there.
Thanks for the big one.
Absolutely. So what makes it go?
Just the arrows.
The arrows.
Flip it upside down. Sure, you got it.
So to the right?
Correct.
All right, so, all right. We usually start off with our milling and paving projects, and we've had a lot of paving happening in the city. And the way it's set up in the city, we have a number of projects actually under that line item. And our total project budget is $4,627,759. But we do have a paving project out there right now. I'm going to give it to Garo to talk about this particular project.
We do. We're just kicking off a resurfacing project around town that we'll be using primarily SPLOST money. We will be contributing some of our LMIG money to that, but it's about a total of 10 miles of resurfacing over about 50 segments of street in various areas of town. We'll be doing a couple of drainage improvements, some pipe replacements down on 4th Avenue, Lanier, just north of 4th Avenue in front of the school. There's some bad pipes there we're going to work on, but primarily this is just a resurfacing and striping contract, about a $1.5 million project that we're just kicking off. It's got a 4-month time frame on it, so weather cooperating, we're looking at end of March or so, mid-April, kind of finishing this thing up.
How do you decide what's priority?
We keep a running list of streets that are in need of repair, whether it be from citizen call-in, our crews out there looking around, myself riding around, Mr. Drum just noting streets that need to be repaired. And then when we get ready to do a project, we go around, we take that list and we go around and we evaluate all those streets.
So do you have that priority list that we could look at this time, or have you not put that together yet? In addition to L?
No, I have that priority street, and that's what we're basing this contract on. We order those streets, 10 being the worst, down to 1, which has just recently been resurfaced, and then decide how much money we're gonna spend and start at the top and work our way down. So I could share the list with you that we're working
Great.
off of. I don't have it with me, of course, tonight, but we can get it to you.
Great.
That we're working off of for this contract.
A lot of them are on the map. We actually, if you see it in the red, that would designate the streets that are under this contract, right?
Exactly.
And good eyes.
Yeah, we can get you a text list of those names.
Certainly.
So is this, I have a concern or a question, I guess, about especially stuff in the historic district, with some of the historic curbing that's in place, and I know there's been, you know, a bunch of resurfacing happening over, you know, the last 50 years, and so now the curb height is, you know, an inch, and some places the street's all the way flush with
Sure.
that. So is this going to be a milling process, and then we'll put?
In some of those areas where that curb, where the asphalt is approaching the top of the curb, I know Prince is scheduled for milling. There's a section on Egmont scheduled for milling, Grant. Some of those areas, like you're mentioning, we are going to mill those down so that we don't cover up that curb.
Awesome.
And then also under our milling and paving of streets, we have a larger project. It's also, not only is it a street paving project, but it's also a drainage project to solve two problems at one time.
Right, and it's roadway drainage, and we're also partnering with Joint Water and Sewer to install a new 12-inch water main through the length of the project while we've got it opened up. But this L Street from, you can see on the map, Martin Luther King all the way to Stacy Street, which is the little segment right there that connects to the Causeway. That will include, of course, that area by the Edo Miller ball field that's in such bad shape. Like I said, we're installing a water line, new drainage structures, pipes, additional structures, larger, higher capacity structures to try to get that water off the road, and then we'll be taking the roadway completely out and repaving that all together. It'll be going back in the same configuration, 2 lanes, 1 lane in each direction, basically same footprint it's in, but be a brand new roadway with drainage. Yes, sir.
May I ask a question? You said you're adding a water line on there too, a new water line or working it with Joint Water and Sewer?
Yes,
Is
sir.
that increased line or replace the same, I think you said 12-inch?
No, so that's an increased line. They've got a couple of different, I think there's an 8-inch in segments under there, and there's a 4-inch in other places. So this will be a new 12-inch line going through there.
That's just living hell, isn't it?
And it's,
Trying to connect to
is
4
it
inch with
just
a-
for the capacity that is currently it's servicing, or is it for future, or is that even
I
an
can't
issue?
speak for them, but I would think they're kind of looking ahead with that.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, if you upsize it from a 8-inch to a 12-inch, it would allow for greater capacity, so certainly it could be done that way.
Okay.
That would make sense. In this project, I think, was in engineering at this point. We thought we'd be going to bid, but there were some issues I think I brought up at the last meeting regarding drainage, taking it under the highway, and that was one of our holdups with DOT, I believe.
Right, we did look, a lot of the west end of that drains down behind Lanier and then out under the DOT roadway, so there was some questions about having to upsize that pipe and DOT permitting and outfalls. We've since decided to grade some retention areas around the baseball field there and try to store that water as opposed to going through that permitting process to upgrade that outfall. But this project is currently out for bid. Bids open on this, I believe, January the 9th, so we should get that in front of our commission for approval by mid-January. Hopefully then get contracts signed and construction to begin by, say, mid-February or so. It's going to be, we've got it set for about a year-long project, and we're going to do it in 3 phases, working from west to east. We are planning to close L Street completely during that time, so that will provide a little bit of headache for some people getting through there, but there's certainly.
What's the period approximately?
Sir?
The period of time approximately?
We're planning for a 12-month construction
12
length.
months?
Yes, ma'am.
I may not be closed the whole 12 months.
We're obviously going to try to get it done as quickly as possible, but
Garrett, the whole L Street's not going to be tied up. It's going to be in the state of construction for a year.
right, and
All right.
we're going to
But
phase
it'll
it in
be-
segments.
Yeah,
We'll do the
okay.
west end will be phase 1, and we'll get it open back to traffic before we move on to phase 2.
Is there any issue, sorry, one more question on
No,
that,
go ahead.
related to Pinova entering and exit their facility there during that construction process?
There's going to have to be a good bit of coordination there because that's their primary entrance, really their only entrance, and they do have a heavy amount of traffic coming through there. So as soon as we get our contractor on board, we're going to start conversations with them, kind of scheduling. You know, that Pinova entrance is the 3rd phase of the project, so we're several months away from that, but we want to go ahead and get ahead of it with them. You know, ideally, they could schedule a shutdown maybe about that time as we work through there.
Gotcha.
But
One thing I would be cautious of as well, and I know I've heard from residents in that neighborhood, like off of Goodyear there, that when there are trucks traveling from the south, a lot of times if they're not familiar with the facility, the GPS routes them to make a left and then head down Goodyear and then up L Street. So that would be something I would be concerned about too, is them getting directed, you know, between the McDonald's and the Popeyes there and then up and then getting stuck.
right.
You know, if you have, you know.
We haven't posted no trucks, actually, so they shouldn't be
Right.
going into the neighborhoods,
But-
honestly.
And we'll leave that entrance open, like I say, as long as we can, and to keep their traffic flowing as well as we can.
Carol, do they have any other way out than that one?
They could probably make a way out if they wanted to. I think, you know, there's a gate down kind of in the curve on L Street across from the apartments.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a gate on 17 there. They could use those gates, I guess, in an emergency. I think security is probably their biggest concern, not really the in and out, but just monitoring what goes in and out those gates. You know, they're set up for pretty good security at their main gate. I think that's their issue.
Any other questions on that one? Sidewalk replacement and upgrade. And though we haven't done anything since our last report, we thought we'd show you a little bit of what we did last year. I think we put together a package and we put some additional
We
grants.
did. We put some LMIG safety money with that last year. Spent just over $100,000 on various sidewalk repairs around town. Sidewalks that are damaged by tree roots or have settled for whatever reason, broken up. That was a remove and replacement project. We have not done a project like that yet this year. We've done a couple of minor segments, almost like emergency work around town that we had to hit. We're looking at trying to do a sidewalk survey now in-house and pull together another list. We kind of manage that similar to the way I was telling you about the roadways. We keep a list of those that need repairs and then rate them. So we're pulling that list together now.
When you say last year, do you mean the last 12 months, or are you talking 2017?
It was done in the end of 2017. It rolled into the early part of 2018.
So you've only spent 12% of the SPLOST budget so far.
For sidewalks, I think we're
1,600,000,
closer to about
whereas
25 or
Your
30%,
budget is
right?
13,000,008.
It's got 189,518 of the 432.
That's closer to 40% if I'm doing my math right.
However, we did have the additional funding coming in of,
True, some of that was LMIG money.
right.
So,
Were some of those pavers, the historic
Oh, maybe
pavers
that's
that were
changed since the
removed,
last.
were those saved to get placed in other locations, or were they just?
no, we have, anytime we pull out pavers and replace those, we are saving those. So we have them stockpiled at our public works yard.
But to clarify, in the historic district, we pledged not to take the historic paver sidewalks and replace them with regular concrete. We actually will restore the pavers.
If there's pavers there, we go back with pavers.
If there's brick, we go back with brick. So we're trying to keep the original patterns. We have very unusual eclectic patterns. We have about 4 or 5 variations of sidewalks downtown, and everybody would like to save it with all of them. So we're trying to work with the different patterns.
Great, thank you.
Storm drainage improvements, and we talked a little bit about our largest project, and that's College Park. And the picture on the left is actually it looked like the morning after Hurricane Matthew. And the right is just the existing drainage that we have, but there's a grander picture, and we're still working through that, and I know that that's kind of been on hold for a while, so maybe the status of where that's been.
It is. We're working with the county on that project, working with the Glenn County on a project for that overall drainage basin. It's called the College Park Basin, and that seems to be the focus, or the name of it anyway, but that
It's a larger project.
basin includes all the way up the spur almost to Home Depot, and that area back in there all the way to Old Cypress Mill. All of that drains down right around College Park and then out behind Lowe's and Home Depot. Or I'm sorry, Lowe's and Target. We've done an analysis of that and determined that our best option is to provide a new outfall route. And the ideal route we think would be along the spur to drain the water down towards the Edo Miller Funeral Home where the spur intersects Highway 17. So right now we're going through talks with GDOT to try to locate some kind of canal or channel within that spur right away going down through there, and providing them information on how that additional water might affect that bridge that goes on 17 there where it would cross in front of the funeral home there.
Are you going to have problems with DNR? There's a
There will
lot
be,
of marsh
there'll be
around.
significant DNR, possibly Corps of Engineers, EPD permitting as that goes through. Obviously, GDOT permitting, crossing community road and along that right of way. So
So it's not only working amongst yourselves to figure out the best solution, you still got GDOT and
yes, sir, it's a very large project, a lot of parties involved.
And we did contract with EMC Engineering of the city and the county jointly, Mr. Dow. You wouldn't know, but, because you just came on the committee, but we actually had put the study out that the EMC would do a study to look at alternative routes and what the best way might be to drain out the entire basin, city and county.
Well, I think it's great,
So-
but you, in front of Edo Miller, you got that marsh property, you got marsh on the other side of 17, and I don't know where you could catch it and drain it to that you're not going to have to get permission from someone.
Right, right. And there's a lot of water coming down. There's a lot of water to handle and try to get off of College Park and the areas upstream of there and trying to get that moving through. So we've got the study done, so we're looking to move forward with the design now and keep that moving.
And again, the study was done as a partnership with Glenn County. The county paid a portion, the city paid a portion.
Says you've been, the county's had your proposal for 9 months and hadn't approved it yet. What's the holdup?
The holdup is GDOT. That we're trying to work with them on what the feasibility is of running down the line down the side of the spur.
Right. The spur is a limited access roadway, and they typically don't, their guidelines are not to allow parallel drainage structures in limited access roadways. So we're trying to explain to them, we're not adding access here, we just have to get this water out of here. The best route for that is parallel to that roadway. And then also the analysis of that additional water going under that bridge down there and making sure it doesn't wash it out or scour those pilings out or cause any damage to that channel there and the highway there.
Right. So our goal at this point would be that we would come up with some arrangement with DOT to move forward, and then it would be our at the position to enter into an agreement with the county for the next phase, which would potentially be design.
Right.
Mary Ross Park. We've had a number of plans for Mary Ross Park. The City Commission did approve a splash pad and a playground to be added to the park for some, it is used very heavily as an event park, but not as a regular park to draw on the population. So this project is underway. In fact, this playground, I think this was just completed today. So these pictures are from this morning. But this is, gives you an idea of some of the extra amenities that are added to Mary Ross Park to help build up some activity there.
And was this playground in conjunction or match up with the overall plan for the Mary Ross Park development or the master plan?
It does. There was an original master plan, and then there was some amendments made to it by the Urban Redevelopment Agency. So this was added in the amendment. There was some recent concern by some groups that use the park actively, and the placement of it really was to be put on I believe the west side of the parking lot. And because they came forward, there was a last-minute amendment to move it over more towards the south, towards the port. So there's a little bit of shuffling to make sure that it would maximize the grass area that could be used for events, but still keep the amenity there for the public.
And so is the URA then in charge of
The design and
design
development,
work and all that?
yes. That's some new pictures. And in fact, it's so new, the ladder is still there up against the, the swing zone. So
The budget that we're talking about, the 800 and some odd thousand, that is all things, the pad, splash pond, pad, the playground, landscaping, everything.
yes. And there would be additional funds for some additional items that have not been completed yet. I believe it included dock repairs too, didn't it?
There was some of that money that has been spent was for dock repairs,
Okay.
So we had that as well.
and those are completed. We're done with those.
So trails, we're happy to say that this trail that started at the Sidney Lanier Bridge, probably about, what, 4 years ago?
It was started before I got here, around 2012, actually.
And
So
it's been incrementally moving northward under different type of funding, whether it was city funds or it was CDBG funds. There's a number of funding sources, but
gotten some money from the Coastal Regional Commission, some grant funds from them.
so we were at this point we finished our funding, but we hadn't completed the trail. And so with these funds, this was one of our first projects to complete. So we have connected.
Right, that segment is complete now. There's a complete route from Overlook Park all the way to the Sidney Lanier Bridge. So we'll be having an opening ceremony on that tomorrow at 2 if anybody wants to stop by there at the dog park.
Take a walk through. You can
It's at the dog park.
It's at the dog park that's where the segment came together. But if you're looking to walk it or ride a bicycle or whatever it might be, there's a great trailhead on either end, really, if you consider there's a park at the moment on both sides, and you can actually connect. So, and, go ahead.
I was going to say, we do have plans and have submitted for additional funding from the Coastal Regional Commission for some amenities along the trail, some benches, some shelters, some map kiosks and that kind of thing, and some signage to go along more with the East Coast Greenway and kind of designate this as a trail.
Landscaping.
Some
I know there was
trees.
Some trees removed.
There, we did take out some pine trees. Our GDOT's requiring us to put back some trees for that, so that'll be included in this additional funding we're getting.
And they would be smaller trees like crepe myrtles.
Right.
And again, this doesn't exhaust our
Trees
trail.
back when they're cutting all
Shade.
their right away.
Shade.
They can't sell it.
Yeah, it's horrible. They got flooding everywhere.
What pictures we do. This doesn't exhaust our trail, of course. We have trails through state grants that we're matching with the trail money, so SPLOST is getting matched with some other state funds for the MLK trail.
Right, we do. We've got a Recreation Trails grant. That's a $100,000 grant. We matched that 20%, I believe. That trail is intended to go along, connect down here at 4th Avenue, go along 4th, and then turn and go up the MLK corridor to Prince. So that should get underway, finalize design and get that underway this year. We're also finalizing design of a Glen Middle School route from Inez Williams, a walking route to get kids off of Lanier Boulevard, give them a safer way to walk to Glen Middle School from those neighborhoods up there. So both of those projects will be partially funded from the SPLOST money, and both of those should get under construction in 2019.
And additionally, we've actually looked to seek grant funding from the state to connect Overlook Park to the tourist causeway, so those from St. Simons who would like to ride their bike over the bridge, I don't know if I'd want to try that, but if you want to come over the bridge from the island, then you can connect to the system down to Sidney Lanier, and that's one of our goals as well. And I know
Right.
at this point that hasn't panned out, but we're still working on it.
We're getting some preliminary drawings done and kind of getting, we got to get our funding in there. Obviously, that'd be a very expensive project, and this, like the CRC money that we've used, that's designated for construction only, so we're looking for some money that can kind of go to planning, design, and permitting for a project like that.
And actually, the interesting part of that piece, if you're familiar with the highway there's not very much land between the road and the marsh. So we're looking at a boardwalk that would basically run along the east side of the
East
highway
side of
and connect
17.
you up to the trail by the old visitor center.
Did we skip over,
Well, we're not following, we're actually going by the slide, but we can come back to,
oh, okay, because wayfinding and gateways and Highway 17 infrastructure.
be glad to come back to those in a
Okay, good, thank you.
Cemetery restoration, I talked about this in the past, and I thought it might be good to show you if you haven't been out to see what it is. And this is really the fence at the Oak Grove Cemetery. We're doing other cemetery work as well, and we're working with the Oak Grove Cemetery Association and other groups to talk about all of our cemeteries, what work can be done. But we do have a lot of historic resources there. The cemetery was founded in 1838, and the fence, we believe, is a Victorian fence that may have gone in somewhere in the 1850s. And if you see the fence, the condition in some areas it's rather rough. And so the one post to the left is actually partially, was under renovation there, the gray colored post. And there it is now, actually, and the fence is nice and straight and clean. So we've had the fence taken out, and wherever they needed to bend it back into place and restore it. So we've got a restoration specialist out of Camden County who does a lot of work for the city of Savannah to work on this fence. And so that's one of the projects underway. I know one of the majority of the money that we spent so far, which is $4,500, was actually for a sprinkling system that was put in, which we didn't catch the sprinkler on for a photo, but we assure you it's there. The entryway there that you see at the gateway, that was recently constructed. However, it wasn't used with SPLOST funds, but that was done with the original bricks of Mansfield Street down by the city police department. When the Mansfield project was done, we actually saved a large number of the street bricks that were there. And so since the cemetery fronts on Mansfield, just several blocks away, we used the remaining bricks to build a very nice brick entrance into the cemetery because it had previously just been with gravel. So we figured we'd build a nice, better entrance. And the replacement of the vehicles. Now, I'm sure you've probably seen them around town. The majority of them that we purchased are actually the Chrysler vehicles to the right, but we have a couple SUVs through the funds that we have. And we've not completed that line item, but we want to give you, I think we've completed 11 of the 15. And our fire rescue vehicle, which just came in like a week ago, maybe 2 weeks. The day I believe we sent you the printed report that the vehicle had arrived. So it is in service. This is a new rescue, fire rescue. It doesn't have the ability to put out a fire or anything in that respect, but it does that it could help in accidents. It's got a winch on the front. It's basically for emergency medical technicians to go out and be the first responder. Sometimes we go out with the paramedics and the ambulance. Sometimes we get there first, and we try to get the scene in place when the paramedics arrive. They'd be ready to transport it if necessary. So that's what it's used. Some of the compartments and the equipment that's put on.
And there was a concern about the fire station housing one of the new fire engines. It was not that vehicle,
It's a full engine.
Right, okay.
Right.
Gotcha. But has the construction or the issues with that station been addressed?
It's one of our projects that we actually have an architect working on right now, but we don't have plans at this point. So that was actually a separate project, but yes, they're still working on that one. Historic squares, and we've moved very little on that so far, but we are waiting for some of the improvements to be done to Wright Square. But the small amount that we did expend there, the $1,600, we wanted to show you a little bit, is we have the Downey Memorial that's in Queen Square, right across from Old City Hall, was restored, as well as the historic bell. And so some of our funds went into that. We're looking at also, I guess, Queen Square is primarily finished, but we're looking to put our next efforts working with Signature Squares, which has brought in a lot of donations to put towards the project with funding, is to do Wright Square where the old middle school was. And so we're going to come back hopefully soon. We're working with the Board of Education right now.
Right.
To work on an agreement to do that. You want to jump in? Sure.
The Board of Education has completed the roadway, or it's a parking area now, I guess, by the tennis courts that comes around the top of Wright Square. So we're looking at improvements, looking at possibly closing George Street through there, combining those halves of Wright Square, looking at the feasibility of that and the traffic maneuvers there and how that would work, making that a similar route to the way Hanover Square works with a counterclockwise motion around the square there, but working with the school board to transfer that property and make that happen if the traffic data works out and the traffic analysis works.
We've had some people come forward worried that it's a very large road and then maybe there's so much traffic, it wouldn't make sense to close it.
Right.
But we have seen a reduction of traffic since the school was taken down and removed, so that's why we're studying
Right,
traffic.
we're in the process of collecting, counting traffic data now, and determining the amount of vehicles out there, you know, where those vehicles might go, whether they jump down to Prince Street or find a different route, how that would affect the surrounding neighborhood.
Howard Coffin Park improvements. A large chunk of that went into the swimming pool. I mean, you want to talk about the pool?
It did. Last year, about January of 2017, we found out that we had a significant leak in that pool there. So we had to jump in there, completely drain it, repair that leak. The leak turned out to be in the under drain system. We went in and also resurfaced the pool, repaired the leak in the under drain system, and got the pool back up and running. So hopefully we can put that pool aside for a little while now and not have too many expenses on it for a while. But also on Howard Coffin Park, we just got word that we received a $100,000 grant from the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And that's a required one-to-one match. So we plan to use that funding to construct a playground tower out at the front of the park near Lanier Boulevard, and a large pavilion for large gatherings, and then some shade structures here at the pool. I don't know if you've ever been out to like the North Glen Park out there on Harry Driggers, those large playground sets. Looking at something like that for this park, we think it'll be well used, well received down there.
When you say large, you mean tall. So basically, the ones that go up couple stories.
Yeah, there's probably 20, 25, 30 feet tall.
So in that case, you could climb up and hopefully get a good view out there over the inlet. So we think that might be worth the climb. We were working on it. And then wayfinding. We actually haven't spent any funds on it at this point, but it is a project that appears to be moving forward. There was a study actually done on this. The city, the county, and the Convention Visitor Bureau, I believe, shared in the cost, and came back and determined that the goal really is to have a better signage program out there throughout the county, but to make it uniform and to get away from some of those rusty old green signs that the state may put out there. And they're not all that bad, but some of them have been there probably 20 or 30 years, as you've seen. And so the concept is to replace a lot of the state signage that we have and put in a much easier signage program to find your way around the county. That's an example of what it would look like. This is a page just out of the study. The funding line item that we have actually will cover the city's estimate of what it would take to construct the project. So that is.
When you your note over here, it says joint project under leadership of another government agency. Is that CBB?
It is. They were the ones who came forward with the concept and brought the county and the city together.
But you guys still control your SPLOST money, even though they're taking the lead?
Yes.
Okay.
So we would pay only for our portion. They've determined what our cost would be for our signs in our district. If you see the sign up there, it says Brunswick at the top. If it's out in the county, it will be labeled Golden Isles, and if it's, I believe St. Simon's is St. Simon's, even though that would be the county.
But you have to buy into what they're saying before you spend SPLOST on it. They're not going to be, it says joint project under leadership of but they don't dictate what the sign's going to look like and you pay for it. You're going to have input in all of it.
Yes.
Yes, the city has input in the, and the county have input in that.
Okay.
I think we jointly, and I don't know if it's formally been approved, but I think jointly we're looking at the logo at the top. But I think, and I think we still have to come forward and probably finalize that in the coloration, whether it's blue or green or whatever. But the concept of us all doing it together is we'll get a better price.
And I'll look uniform.
Correct. I think that's the conclusion of the slides. Is that right? Yes. So there are other items on here. We try to cover the issues that we've had activities and some areas have not either been budgeted in this year's budget, so some of those projects are a year away. Some of them are still in design, so we haven't had any expenses. If there's a project that we didn't discuss you'd like us to answer a question on, we'd be glad to.
Well, thank you.
May I ask him
very much
one
for being
question?
So well prepared.
Highway 17 infrastructure, did you cover that and I missed it,
No.
or is that not a slide?
It is not a slide at this point. The city commission put that project in there, but they actually, at the time it was put in on the SPLOST, there was not a defined project put in there, and so we still are trying to put that project together, but we have a portion of that project that we just recently came forward with, and we have a grant tied to it.
We do. We received, it's called a Welcome to Georgia grant from GDOT, and we'll use part of that money for the matching funds for that grant. And basically what that is it's almost like a gateways grant. We'll do a similar landscape or entranceway project, similar to what we did up at Gloucester in 17, except without the large monument sign. It'll be a landscaping intersection improvement there, so when people come off of the bridge coming into town, it just looks a little nicer area there. There's an anchor monument. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. We want to provide a little nicer pedestal and just sort of beautify that area a little bit there. So we use part of that money for grant matching for that grant.
Correct. There was some discussion because of the Highway 17 overlay district project that there would be potentially some funds that could be used in the project after that project was complete. That's why there was not a specific plan put in place when it was budgeted.
The GDOT permitting is in keeping with what Garrow just said. It's more of a design, not new intersections, lighting, or things like that. It's more beautification.
It is, but anything along that 17 corridor would have to go through GDOT permitting.
Right.
I mean, anything we want to do out there. So.
Right, but the SPLOST money is for beautification, not signalization or...
I'm hearing that hasn't been identified.
It has not been identified, so potentially.
That was a project that was gray, let's say.
Correct. Yes, I would agree with that description.
But we'll
Tending towards black.
see it before it turns white or black or whatever, from gray.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes, yes.
I have one more quick thing, Chairman, if you don't mind. You know, I feel like part of our responsibility as a committee is to listen to the voice of the citizens and express maybe some of their concerns. One of the things I keep hearing over and over from people in the city is a concern that any of the SPLOST dollars are funneled through or controlled by the URA, and the lack of confidence that maybe some of the citizens have in the URA. So I would just share that message, and hopefully the commission and staff members hear that.
Well, I'd like to clarify that, though. The SPLOST funds were designated to the city, and so no SPLOST funds are ever transferred into any bank accounts or any control of the URA. They stay in the city funds, and any requests for fundings has to come, even if the URA is managing the design of a project like Mary Ross, for example, any funds that would come forward for a request has to still go through the city's purchasing process and go through everything that way, and the city is actually monitoring it, and all the funds are paid directly by city check to those vendors. Once work's verified, it's done. So the URA works as a board for the city and planning and coming up with concepts, but they don't manage any of the finances of it. So if there's a concern of the financial situation, it stays with the city 100%.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification.
I have a question too. As Ms. Fraser pointed out, you spent about 12% or 14% of your budgeted funds so far. And then as I look down.
Okay, overall,
Yeah. Most of the completion dates, I see one in 2021, was from 2020. How confident are you you're going to meet those dates for completion?
On some of the projects, I think we're very confident, but on others, I think we're kind of tied to the DOT permitting, so it's still a question out there. And that's, I think some of the larger dollar amounts are, and if you looked at our total SPLOST initiative, we put the majority of our money in the paving and into drainage, and some of them are tied up right now into the permitting DOT.
We have, we mentioned the resurfacing project, that's $1.5 million. L Street's coming to bid, we're estimating $1.5 million. We have a Magnolia Park project coming to bid, or finalizing design, should be finished in the spring. We're looking at anywhere from $2.5 to $3 million on that, so that should go into construction later this summer, or this summer of 19. So that'll be a big chunk of money going out here in 2019. Like Mr. Drum mentioned, the College Park is kind of tied up in DOT and the permitting like we discussed. So that one's a little bit, I guess we're unsure of timeline on that. But the rest of them, we do feel good about getting things moving and spending that money out.
That's great. Now, I want to commend you on the great report. I'm finally, getting a good grip on the handle of what's going on in Brunswick. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome. And you can check off that one fire rescue truck. That was one project. And the engines hopefully will be here by the end of the month, and so we'll be able to take that off as well. They're in construction in Ocala, Florida right now with E1.
Would it also be good to get those sidewalks so that the children have a safe way to get to school?
True.
If you haven't moved that to the top of the list, we all hope you will.
It is for the school. In fact, you have a bridge that was
It is.
permitted.
That project, we've got the permitting and all on the walking trail. That project should go to bid shortly after the first of the year here. And then the MLK trail over there, we should get that to bid this summer. We've been dealing with CSX on there, trying to get some property from them, and it's just, I don't know if you've ever dealt with the railroad. It's not working in our favor.
Good luck.
So, but we'll finalize that design and get that under construction this year also. So it's coming together.
Good.
Any other questions?
Good. Thanks very much.
Oh.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the slides. Well,
Hope it helped.
Jimmy, I think you're next. While he's coming up, Alan, can I ask you a question? When we started out in 17, we were worried about how current the traffic study was. I hear there's a big one underway somewhere. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Or sometime.
Thank you.
Good evening. The county applied for a grant through the MPO program of the state. Actually received two grants, two fundings. One was for the city to do a transportation study. And then the larger part of the funding is for the county to do an updated transportation study on St. Simon's Island. And sometime after the first of the year, that RFP will be sent out for design engineer. It really doesn't start until around mid-2019, the funding, but that will be underway sometime next year. And we look to it as just being an extension and update on what was done and more a specific study. Ben, you want to add it? Did I miss something?
Yeah, I mean, we were concerned not just with intersections, but overall capacity of roadways. Because the study that was performed before, as you know, just focused on particular intersections, existing capacity, types of improvements, the capacity with those improvements. And that's what we're implementing a lot with the SPLOST program. And so this updated study is not just at intersections. It's corridor analysis, it's growth, it's projection, things like that. So we believe that this funding that we're receiving from the state is going to be very helpful for us to identify just from a larger perspective where are roadways at currently based on the projected growth, anticipated growth, or what's the need going to be in the future, not just at intersections but overall transportation systems.
So it's a comprehensive.
Yeah, I mean. We're still looking at how comprehensive it is.
Everything's comprehensive. It's a great word, isn't it?
Well, the last one, had all the caveats that we were just looking at intersections, and you said it's more.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, that was, again, intersection improvements and analysis is good, but you always have to look at, well, what does the corridors, how are they evaluated? That's also an important piece of it. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Junker.
Sir.
You find your $400 million yet?
400 million.
That's what you said when you first showed up, you need 400 million to fix
No,
everything.
I've decided that we're only gonna fix what we already own.
Oh.
Everything that goes into expansion, somebody's gonna have to write a check.
Yes.
That cut it down considerably. We got it down to about 110 or 120 by doing that. But that's another
Well, I
story.
found the money, so, let me know when you want to.
You found it? I'll talk to you right after. We'll find a way to spend it. Our presentation's fairly simple. You got it in front of you there tonight. Looking at our North Mainland Sewer Rehab and Reroute Project, or North Mainland Sewer Improvements Project. I think we're all familiar that we finished the Phase 1, which provided additional capacity, which there was a press release this week, or last week rather, regarding the grad certification capabilities out at the trade winds. So that's a good mark for us as far as what the SPLOST monies have done for us. We're working to get the engineering RFP out next week for phases 2 and 3, which would be the bulk of the main flows coming back, turning flows from the Harry Driggers area back down to the plant. Basically, phase 2 is the most downstream portion nearest the plant that'll need to be upsized to take those additional flows. We're doing some things right now to rehab existing infrastructure, and hopefully they'll tide us through for a few years. The other part of it is phase 3, which is the actual rerouting along Harry Driggers and there at Canal Road. I think the big thing to note there is that we're kind of tied to some of the same problems that the county is in that project, because they're waiting on certain easements to be able to define their routing of the widening. We don't want to put in our design for where the lines are going to go until the county knows what they need to do, and they can't know until they get the easements rectified, is my understanding. So if there's delays, phase 3 would be our delay in getting the total project done due to those easements. But we are going to move ahead next week and issue the RFP for the engineers for both phases 2 and 3. We'll move ahead with the construction on phase 2 almost as soon as the engineering's done, because there's no easement requirements. It's just really a rehab of the downstream lines. So that's the North Mainland Sewer Improvements Project status for right now. Any quick questions on that before I move on? None? Wow. Easy audience. I'll talk to you in a minute about the 400s. But as we move on, the other project that we were given money to do were the Brunswick Sewer Improvements Project, which basically, it cooks down in a nutshell to the larger downstream lift station, sewer lift station. They're just off of 341 before you get to the plant down there. Is basically, we're going in and rehabbing that thing and turning it into a plant that, a pump station to be able to take additional capacity, take what we're getting and additional capacities, reroute some of the sewer assets we've got upstream to it, and move those too. We had to, I think in the last meeting, I reported that we had went out for RFPs for engineering, and after the series of confused responses we got, we went back and redefined the scope of work, and we've reissued the RFP for engineering services. We hope to have that finalized and have the engineer selected by early February to move ahead with that. And we do expect an April completion on that project. That's where we're at on that one. Things are moving along. I heard some talk about the overruns on some of the other projects, the other two groups have got. From what I understand right now, we're going to be on budget with the 4003, the Brunswick project. We've been able to re-engineer and rescope to accomplish what we were set out to do. As far as the North Mainland sewer improvements, we're going to reach into our expansion funds and come up with a difference, whatever it is above what SPLOST provided. Any questions?
only comment is that you're the only person I've ever seen to use the word only 11.7 million.
Well, when you start off the conversation talking about 400 million,
400 million for you.
11.7 is not much.
Well, I would strike only there.
In SPLOST 16.
Well, actually, we've worked it down. That was an improvement over what we had, so maybe it only is the appropriate term.
Jim, so the 2016 SPLOST, it's all the city and mainland Glen. There's nothing on St. Simons
There are no projects on St. Simons
in the SPLOST?
in the SPLOST for us.
Okay.
Now, we are, working together with the city, with the county on at least the village project to do some drainage work while they redo their roads. It's not drainage, water and sewer, yeah.
Which will be part of the county SPLOST money?
No,
No.
we'll fund our
Gotcha.
portion.
Okay,
They're funding their portion out of SPLOST.
got it.
Other than that. Any other?
Great. Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Kitts is not here, so his subcommittee update, his reason for not being here has to do with an urgent family medical problem, so we didn't have any advance notice so that we could get Dr. Gretchen to make the report for him, so.
Grades are making their fun.
Yeah, that woke you up, didn't it, Phil?
So, we will not have that report. The topic is our annual report as a committee. The schedule that's in my head is that we will approve the annual report for release to the public at our February meeting. So, I think we should still be able to meet that. I have lunch with Mr. Kitts. I know he's well prepared, been thinking about it, and has some ideas, so. This will be our
Have
first report
have
that
we
we
as a
can-
committee just sort of talked in general terms of, missed the last meeting, but in terms of what the scope of this annual report should be and what we'd like to see?
Basically, who are we, what we've been doing, how often we've been meeting, and an overview of all this that we've been hearing today and other meetings. So, I think we're going to be able to report that we've done what we were getting paid to do.
We burned our keep.
All right, so he'll be back.
Just,
I think we discussed before the meeting the two dates for every 60 day, the next two meetings. And I wrote down the 19th of February and the 16th of April, or it might be the 17th. So.
16th is what I have.
16th is
Income
what I
tax
had.
day.
What is it?
16th is what we wrote down.
Yeah, good. All right.
Before you adjourn, I'm impressed with what's going on tonight in the reports. It's,
Yeah.
we're really
Yeah.
up in the game and getting on there.
Yeah.
But I wonder, where are the signs that say this project being funded with your SPLOST dollars? It seems to me, I get a lot of comments from citizens about it, what you're doing, and they, of course, think only bad things, but I think I'd like to encourage the city and the county and the joint water and sewer to get some signs out there and say this funded by your SPLOST money. As, for instance, what's better visible than that Demery Road repaving?
Mm-hmm. That came out incredible.
So I think it's remarkable how well it's going. I think Alan and his people, and Jim and his people, and Jimmy and his people are doing a hell of a job. It's impressive to watch.
We have to share the message though, so that way next time when it comes up on the ballot.
Think about, is there some way that you can, pat yourselves on the back and get the signs out there?
Well, that's a very valid point. I think we've mentioned before that county staff meets once a month and we go over all the projects, make sure that we're staying on track. And we met, I think it was last week, and that came up from staff. And so our goal is to get those signs out. I think it was just an oversight, but I
some of those yard signs that were picked up in county right away.
Exactly.
Use them,
Flip
just
them over.
replay them.
Do we need Mr. Chairman, a motion for those 2 new meeting dates for next year?
Yes, let's do it that way, then it's in the record, so.
I'll make a motion that we meet on 2/19 and 4/16 of 2019, 5:30 in the same location.
Second?
Yeah, I like this room, Matt. Can we have this room again?
Yes, sir, from now on.
Good, good, this is great. Is that second?
Second.
Yes, all right. Any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Matt,
All right, how about a motion to adjourn? Thank you for your patience. I have this hope that we'll keep these meetings to about an hour, but
I apologize, I had
it's good to have the questions.
again,
the
Matt,
interest.
thanks a lot for getting materials out to us. Really,
That's
I
the
know
most
that you're
important
writing
part.
people. It's really,
That time to look at
it's
them
really
ahead of
good
time.
in there, and appreciate it. If there's a way that they, if you're getting these 3 or 4 days before, a printed copy just to drop in the mail is easy, because I can't print these darn things out on my computer. I guess you don't use a computer, so. If there's a way, I mean, I realize that not everybody's getting it, but just to drop it in the mail, even just to,
Okay.
I know I'll come down and pick it up.
Sure, let's talk about that. We can talk about that in email, exactly how you want to get them to you, whether it be mail or however you want to do that.
That would be great.
Yeah, it just makes it easier, because it's,
But I just want to put it in the record of the meeting that to date, the SPLOST funds are $34,734,560.24. So it's impressive. It's coming in pretty close to $2 million a month, or $1 million a month. $2 million every 60 days. So we must be very wealthy, Trinity. All
Mr.
right,
Chairman,
folks.
I want to just, first meeting, first observation. The county staff, the city staff, joint water sewer had very little to contribute. What they said and amplified from what was on this chart, I could visualize what they were saying, and this is someone that, if it's not written down explicitly with pictures, but they did a great job. Great job.
Kudos to Ben over there. I have to confess, Ben is my first cousin.
He's your first what?
He's my first cousin.
Yeah.
Isn't that right, Ben? Can I say that
Ben says that
publicly?
you're his second cousin.
But third removed, or whatever.
full disclosure, though.
Yeah.
Rights removed, but third cousin.
Yeah.
I don't know, when we figure it out, we'll tell you next meeting. I don't want to embarrass you.
You already did.
How about a motion to adjourn?
Blushing.
Motion. Second.
Second, thank you, and we'll see you next meeting.
Thank you, Bob.
Have a happy holiday season.
Yep.
Oh, that's
Oh,
true.
right.
Yeah,
There is
I
something
forgot
coming
about
up
that.
there called
Have a good
Christmas, isn't there?
Yes, sir.
I will. I'm trying to get back to the woods.